Chris, you want to do introductions?
I certainly will. I'm Chris Palmer. I'm the executive director. To my left is Sean Reynolds. He's our board chair representing DEC. Patty McLaughlin. I know we go back. Our office manager is our recorder. Casey Holsworth, representing State Parks. Brad Glass, representing the city of Albany. Pat Kern, representing Albany County. Nancy Pearson, citizen member. Don Safehouse, representing the town of Gilliland, and our secretary, and joined with the supervisor from the town of Gilliland, Peter Barber, and John Brust, citizen. Good morning.
Okay, the first item is to consider the minutes of the March 19th meeting. Everybody had a chance to look those over. Any comments? We get a motion to accept the minutes. Peter. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Do we have any comments from the public this morning?
Yeah, Bob Kadeem from the Friends of the Bush community. I just paid for Liza stipend for the summer educational intern at Benefit Homes. And also, we're the recipient of a major donation, a monthly donation from the Murphy Brothers. So if you have any ideas of how to best spend our money, we'll take them. It's a game changer, the donation we're receiving now. Big game changer.
Great, that's awesome.
That's it.
Thanks, Bob. Any other comments from the public? Yeah. Moving right along. Reports. Commission chair. Happy to report for the first time since I've been the chair, I had an opportunity to participate in Movement Fest. Came for bird banding. And had some time to spend with staff. We had staff here from DEC as well. It was a great event. My thanks to Neil and the intern staff that were out there that day, Amy Price and Aaron. We had a great day, got some really great photos. It was a really amazing experience for me. I had a long career in natural resources, and one of the coolest things I've had a chance to do. We had our auditors here that day as well. They got a chance to see what the Pine Bush is all about, and we had a really great attendance from the public. So a lot of winning of hearts and minds. It's really just a beautiful morning spent here. So thanks to everybody who made that happen. It was really great. That's my report. Great. Board members' reports. Nancy?
Oh, I'll be the one to, I stopped by and that was amazing that there were so many people there, and so always great. They do a great public, they do nice bird banding just independently, but when they get the public involved, they really do. It's amazing to see how involved people are. But we also took a great tour with board members and technical people a week or so ago with Neil, and that was amazing too. It was a great tour. We got to see an awful lot of different types of how an area has been managed. So that was, thank you. Well, staff do such a great job. So that's my final word.
Any other board members?
I can give just a big bang our work with Pine Bush there and DEC. So far, we've burned 103 acres, which is about as much as we did all of last year. And actually, last year we didn't get to start until June 16th. So we got all those acres done before we even started last year. So that's a huge thanks to everyone here who helped the program going, and we're able to see that going in spot. And we have another 25 or so that we're planned for this year. So we're holding off on those. Some of those are for protection of wetland species around vernal pools and things like that. So we have those late in the year when those species can be protected. But part related to that, the upcoming fire science workshop that Neil is helping to put together there's a virtual workshop, but there's in-person field trips. So we're organizing a trip to Big Bend, focused mostly on how we actually got to get started there and how we got the program from just concept to actually fire on the ground. So that's hugely thanks to Pine Bush, your support staff, and also staff. I've been working a lot with rangers and forest health and foresters and from the DEC. It's huge help. So excited about that. And also, thanks for that. After that tour in the afternoon, we're going to be hosting the Fire Council meeting, New York State Fire Council meeting. The working group is going to meet at Pavilion at Myrtle this afternoon. So really happy to host all those awesome activities. Thank you.
I just want to introduce Stephanie Woodard, citizen member, and Jessica Mahar, representing the Nature Conservancy. They're with us remotely. I think Stephanie probably wants to add a report too.
Thank you, Chris. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. I just want to announce that there'll be a Juneteenth celebration at the Pine Bush Discovery Center. It will be hosted. This event is to share a history of the Rappaport Historic District, which is a structurally and socially preserved residential neighborhood right in the Pine Bush. Just a bit of information about the historic district. It was developed as part of the Great Migration, a national movement of African Americans that developed and that were able to settle in the North. And specifically for the historic district, this migration happened between 1927 and 1963. Throughout that span of time, 23 African American families settled in the Pine Bush area. And the great thing about our historic district is that within the Pine Bush, it's on both the National Registry since 2020 and New York State's Registry of Historic Places since 2003. The event will start at 6 o'clock. Doors open at 5:30. The event will include the viewing of the WMHT documentary North to New York, The Great Migration in the Capital District. This is a local companion documentary to Lewis Gates Jr.'s national documentary, which he entitled Great Migration, A People on the Move. And Lewis Gates' documentary explored the transformation, the impact of the migration on America's culture. This particular documentary by WMHT focused on the transformation that took place in the Capital District, specifically how it impacted Albany County with the historic district on Rapp Road. So we'll have a casual conversation. We have two of the producers supposed to join us, Chantel and Dana and myself. And we hope that if you're in town and you want to hear about some really good history right in the Pine Bush, right along with everything else that's happening in the Pine Bush, I hope you can join us.
Thanks, Stephanie. I'm passing around a flyer for the event too.
Thank you, Chris.
Well. Okay, I always point you to the update that's in your board packet. I won't go over any of those things because there's other things I want to highlight. I sent around our Lupin Fest passport. Lupin Fest, Sean mentioned, was a month-long event. I won't go into a whole lot of detail. The committee is going to be meeting, special events committee, to look at numbers. By all means, it was certainly a successful month. Activities every day. If it wasn't scheduled, there were self-guided activities. It was a really good, well, it was a good year last year. It was a really good this year. And I want to thank every staff member. Everybody played a role in some way or another for Lupin Fest. So that was great. Nature Bus is back functioning again. This is a cooperative project between DEC, State Parks, CDTA, spearheaded by the Mohawk Hudson Land Conservancy and us. We're a sponsor and a partner. The flyers this year are both in English and in Spanish. And the idea is to get people out into nature in safe spaces. With transportation provided by CDTA, it's free, particularly folks that are in the inner city or in disadvantaged communities. Let's see. I wanted to recognize and welcome Danica Tomes, Dr. Danica, and Danica Tomes is our summer environmental education intern. Bob mentioned half of her position is supported by the Friends, and Victoria Spadaro. She's here. She's our new visitor services specialist. They both started same day, just about 4 weeks ago. Does that sound right? If you're on board on a Tuesday, 4 weeks ago. And a report. This is put together in-house, working with staff, spearheaded again by Wendy Craney. The photo is by Sarah Riley, our community connections coordinator. Pass that around. Just have to thank. She manages our volunteers, does our outreach, among many other things. Let's see, budget. Here's a book that was produced by third graders at Pine Bush Elementary. Pine Bush Elementary School was here. They produced this, Jackie, right, for second graders?
They came during Health Habitat, and it was a looping class. They went up to third grade, and that third grade teacher continued. And they worked all year on all the information and how to write and present and write a book and all of that.
So they had an event here on April 30th, and this is the book that was presented to Jackie. Jackie's our lead educator, so I'll pass that around. And actually, this is in the media files that you got in your packet. This is from the Albany Enterprise when the kids were here on the 30th, so that's too. And finally, I wanted to let you know, so the Gildan Library has an initiative that's called Community Pages, where they're going to put journals in different public spaces and businesses around the area in Gildan, and this is going to be one of the spaces. So they're going to place a journal with writing materials, instructions how to do it. It's going to be here starting next Friday, is that right? June 26th?
Yep.
And run through the summer. So it's an opportunity for kids, anybody who comes to visit, to do some journaling. And I think that is it. I'll talk about budget, and then I'll move into grounds, if that's okay. Yeah, all right. And then I'll stop. So Erin isn't here to do the grounds, the Discovery Center grounds capital project update. She's on vacation. So starting off with budget, I think you all know the budget was a little late this year. Passed, adopted on the 27th of May, 56 days late. Latest budget since 2010. We've had budget go into August in the past, so we're thankful for that. Didn't happen. Environmental Protection Fund remained at $425 million. There was a proposal in both houses, the Senate Assembly, to bring that up and bring our appropriation up. At the end of the day, it stayed at 425, and our appropriation stayed at 3.1 million, which we're thankful for. That's for operations. And even more exciting, the governor's office and DEC and the legislature finalized the budgets. We got another $5 million for this capital project, total of $10 million in New York Works that flows through DEC, and it's for the grounds project, and it ties into the governor's get offline, get outside. So I can share a timeline and talk about the grounds project. I say every time we have these meetings, somebody should do this one. So we are now at, there we go, start sharing here. There we go. So this is the project timeline as of the 12th of June from our project manager at OGS. So as a reminder, OGS Design and Construction, they are managing this project, primarily because this is OGS managed facility. It's a state building, it's state funding, and we're state commission. They're working with Colliers. Colliers is on a term contract with them. Colliers is the larger organization, the landscape architecture firm that bought Bergman. Bergman did the concept design. Remember, we did this concept back in 2022. We finished it in May of 23. So basically, we've been working with the team at OGS, our team internally, OGS and Collier's team, to produce this program report. They produce the program report, we review it, we sign off on it with OGS. Program report basically takes that concept design, and they go through what's called findings. So they use all these disciplines: electrical, civil engineering, landscape architecture, whatever you can think of. To look at how is that concept design going to fit with what we have here for utilities and things like water and wastewater and the building itself. And then there's an estimator that comes in, and then it looks at all those numbers. So the numbers you come up with a program report with a rough budget that gives you an idea, can you move forward in the design? So they came back with a budget of $7.5 to $10 million. At that point, we had $5.5 million. So we had to cut back. We got the additional 5. We still have cut back, but we're moving forward, and the estimate will probably be somewhere between 7.5 and 10. We move into design now, starting in July. Design will go until April or May. It'll be lots of detailed work with staff, with the architects, with the engineers, lots of check-ins, and then we can actually have an idea of what it's going to look like. We'll have some renderings. We'll have good numbers to look at. And then just goes out to bid. This will go out to bid at the end of August of 27. That's the goal. Sure. So that's the quick summary of the grounds project. Can I answer anything so far? Things have taken longer than expected. No surprise. But the folks at OGS have been really helpful. And they make sure the contractor, they push the contractor pretty hard. Okay, right. All right.
Technical committee, Neil?
Good morning, everyone. Well, I have to start after your reports by saying thank you for the kind words. It's a pleasure to have everybody out in the preserve looking at the work, both for bird banding and obviously for all the stewardship and fire that happens in the preserve. So I may have been the MC of that event, but it's really Joel, Bodie, all the rest of the science, stewardship and fire staff that make all that stuff work, so I can walk around the preserve with you all, tell you about the great results based on the science, the data we collect. So hats off to the entire staff. Project review wise, I want to next start. Well, the committee met in April and May, but we only reviewed existing projects. There's not a report in your packet, so look for a report this summer. The only project we reviewed was the project over in the town of Gilderland, the planned unit development on 20 New Carter Road. And that project is still in the review and planning process. I did a field trip with the town planner, the chairman of the planning board, and based on that field trip and the resulting review by the technical committee, we submitted additional comments. And it's still being reviewed, but it sounds like, Supervisor, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's still being reviewed and there may be additional modifications made to that design that ultimately end up in striking a slightly better balance for both the preserve and for the developer. Time will tell.
Substantial revision.
I didn't want to get too far out.
Well, Albany County's been very helpful.
Well, thank you. The town's been fantastic to work with, but I also want to thank the town for local law number 2.
Oh, yes. Sure.
I thought you would, yeah.
The referral.
You want to talk about that, or you want me to?
Yeah. Local law number 2 was a recommendation of the town comp plan, and basically what we do is we codified what we've always been doing, which is within the study area, review boards, planning board, building board, and town board will refer the matter to the technical committee. But the study area is vast. It goes all the way out to 146,
yes.
20. We're even finding, as we talked in the past, we're finding remnants south through 20 outside the study area. Even with that, we still consult with the technical committee outside the study area. So again, it's just one of those easy recommendations to codify, but got a lot of positive comment.
Well, thank you, and thank the town board for making that possible. The technical committee project review guidelines have been in our management plan at FEIS for a couple of decades now. And this is the first municipality to actually codify those recommendations of that process into what the town will follow. So that will ensure the long-term protection of and good balance in the town of Gilderland within the study area. You mentioned the field trip. We will be meeting in July. The only new project we have to review is the Rensselaer Lake Dam replacement project. And we have been meeting with the department and looking at that site for a while now, so that proposal will be coming from the technical committee in July. And Casey made a plug for the Prescribed Fire Science and Management Workshop. There is now a link to that on our website. That workshop is open to anybody, and it's essentially online. So it's 3 half days online for anybody that wants to join up with that. And then we have the field trip at Big Bend, followed by the Prescribed Fire Council, and the council officially, the council steering committee elected me their chair. So I think that's a good thing. Questions? You have to try to answer any. Otherwise, I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Financial reports, Lisa.
Good morning.
Not a lot here. We have 1 month through April, our fiscal year. We'll start out, dues and contributions with a private donation of $125. You will see this in June, September, December, and March quarterly donations from Trust. Government grant, $239,000. And I broke this out on, the lump sum here. I broke it out. I usually break it out for you. $4,500 of that is for the New York Works grant, and $235,000 is for DCC. The New York Works grant is the line item for $5 million. Mitigation is 0, and this again will come in quarterly. Lease revenue is on budget. Other revenue is $1,000 higher than budget, and this is just due to Bank of Green County interest in that. Operating revenue came in at 97% of budget in April. On the personal and fringe, it's $23,000 over budget in April, and this happens every April. We have a big workers' compensation payment that we put from March, and which is a prepaid account to our April 26th, 27th fiscal year. Training and travel is close to budget. Contractual is close to budget. Communications is on budget. Occupancy is under budget, and this is just due to the timing of national grid invoices and utilities that we paid in May. They did not come in until May. Supplies and equipment are on budget through April, and other expenses are a little bit expenses came in at 185% of budget, and this is due to $77,000 of prepaid expenses that we have. That we pay in March that we actually record in our expense line in April. That's spiked a little bit over, giving us a $20,000 operating loss. On capital, capital is 0 for Albany Pine Bush, and our capital expenses for the New York State Works Grounds project are $4,573. And then on down to non-cash and revenue expenses, depreciation is on budget, and gains on investments is $264,000 due to a positive performance of all 4 funds due to favorable market conditions. And May also had a great month. So total change in net position is a gain of $222,000, which includes operating loss of $20,000, investment gain of $264,000, and depreciation expense of $23,000. If I include this line item below here, which includes our balance sheet capital expenditures. This is our Paris budget. There's a lot of budgets, so I'd like to give you all those figures. Our Paris budget is $217,000 operating budget. The balance sheet, statement of net assets.
Total cash increase, almost $200,000, this is just due to operating expenses, paid in April. Cash for OGS decreased $4,500. Again, this is due to expenses that we receive from OGS on a monthly basis. Grants receivable increased $234,000, and this is just due to money owed for the DEC, EPS money for April. OGS receivables is zero. Accounts receivable decreased slightly just due to payments for money owed. Lease receivable remained the same. Inventory remained the same. And here's the prepaid expenses. They are zero, and you will see this every March and April. We record prepaid expenses for our next fiscal year, which is 26, 27, which we flip in. Investments had a net increase of $264,000 due to favorable market conditions. Land remained the same. Capital assets decreased $22,000. We had a deposit on a trailer for $1,000 and depreciation expense of 20%. Capital assets for New York Works increased $4,500. Deferred outflows, this is our New York State Retirement Actuarial Report, which we will report in November. This will stay the same until we receive that new report, giving us an increase in total net assets of $200,000 due to mainly an increase in investments and grants received. On to liabilities, slight decrease due to accrued expenses being paid in April on accounts payable. Deferred revenue remains the same. This is our national grid power line money. So this will remain the same unless we use every couple of years. Deferred revenue OGS decreased by $4,500, and this is due to the expenses for April that came in. New York pension liability, again, this is our actuarial report, which we will report in November. Remain the same. Lease liability decreased $11,000 due to 1 month prepaid rent for TNC that we recorded in April. OPEB liability remained the same. This is an actuarial calculation through Milliman for OPEB benefits, and this will be reported in January. Total liabilities decreased $22,000, mainly to a decrease in OGS deferred revenue, accrued expenses, and liability. Capital assets decreased $17,000, and we have $5,000 in construction progress for OGS, $1,000 for a trailer, and $23,000 in depreciation expense. Reserved assets in the endowment remain the same. Reserved assets for OGS decreased by the expenses of $45.73, and unreserved assets increased $244,000, giving us an increase in total assets $222,000 reflected in our operating loss of $20,000, $264,000 in gain on investment, and a depreciation. On to investments, great news for April and May, actually. April came in at $264,000 net gain on investment, $6,700 in the reserve fund, Discovery Center endowment, $7,400. The endowment $191,000, and our OPEB reserve $59,000, giving a total of $260,000. And in May, we have an increase of $363,000 on our fund. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Okay.
So next, we have a presentation by Liam from Jesky and Company on our audit.
That's when we want Liam first to the board of directors.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Liam Rowland. I'm from Jesky and Company. I'm an audit manager. This was my first year on the audit of the Pine Bush, which can sometimes be a challenge. So I wanted to thank Chris and their team for how seamless they made this, not only with their knowledge and expertise, but also their responsiveness and their organization. First year for me and a first year for our senior on the engagement. So usually that's a challenge, but I was forewarned that this was a great client. You guys proved that to be true. So thank you very much. So I have three things that I will be presenting to you today. Three deliverables. I have the report to the board, the audited financial statements, and the examination report. We're going to start with the report to the board, so that's what we have in front of us. So in summary, this is just kind of a high-level summary of what our responsibilities were, and then any misstatements or findings that we noted as a result of our audit procedures. I'm not going to bore you with the details because Frank has actually already presented most of this, if not all of it, to the Audit and Finance Committee. So there were no such misstatements noted, and there were no findings noted as a result of our procedures. Do you want to skip to the last page of this report where it's other information? Other information, just a little bit further down. All right.
That one.
Okay. All right. So basically, what this is a summary of what our responsibility is in relation to the annual report, Harris report. We're required to read them and compare them to the financial statements for material consistency, but we do not issue an opinion on those reports. We just read them and compare them. So now we can jump to the audited financial statements. Should have a heading that says financial statement. That's the one. Okay. So this is what we're here for. This is the audited financial statements. So the first 4 pages are actually management discussion and analysis. As you can probably guess, this is prepared by management. It's kind of a detailed summary of operations during the current year. Again, our responsibility for this is just to read it and compare it to the financial statements. I'm not sure if this will be disseminated, but it's a very good summary if you're looking for a summary of operations for the current year. I would definitely flip through it, but again, we're not reporting on that, so we just compare it to our financial statements. So
Everybody got it.
okay, great.
Everybody got it.
Okay. So here's the independent auditor's report. Again, this is what we're here for. We're pleased to announce that we are issuing an unmodified or clean audit opinion for the year ended March 31st, 2026. Also included in this report will be just some details of what our responsibilities are and what management's responsibilities are. This shouldn't really have changed much from the prior year. Basically, when you have an audit that doesn't have any findings and no misstatements, if you give a clean opinion, most of the language is exactly the same as boilerplate. So again, we can just jump to the last page of the, just one more page, I think. Last page of the report. So up a little bit, right above where it says date.
There we go.
Yeah, so because this is an audit conducted in accordance with government auditing standards, we are also required to report our consideration of internal control over financial reporting. That's specific to government audits. That's the last couple pages of this document. It's where we would report any significant deficiencies or instances of noncompliance that we noted as a result of our procedures. As you'll see later on in this report, there were none. So you can go to the next page. So I've been instructed to just kind of give a pretty high level because Frank's already gone through this. I don't want to bore everybody to tears, but what you're going to see here is the statements of net position. So most times referred to as a balance sheet. Pretty consistent operations from the prior year. The only thing that's going to jump out to you that Lisa actually already touched on is the cash held in escrow. Those are the New York Works funds that are managed and held in escrow by OGS. We can't, on the financial statements, commingle them with cash because they are restricted for that specific purpose. So that will probably jump out to you as a large line item. And then if you scroll down a little bit, its counterpart is in that revenue advances line. So that is the money that was received for the New York Works grant, included as a liability and in the escrow account. But as you'll see here, if you look at most of the other line items, most things are pretty similar in a strong position compared to the prior year. You can jump to the next page. So this is the statement of revenues, expenses, and change in that position, income statement. So if you scroll down a little bit, first thing you probably want to look at is operating income. And as you can see in the current year, it is up. It's suggesting, because revenues are similar, it's suggesting consistent operations with the prior year, because the main drivers of the increase in expenses are the pension expense and the OPEB expense, which are determined by actuaries and out of the control of the commission. So just more evidence of consistent operations with the prior year. So in a good position. Go ahead and scroll to the next page. So here's your statement of cash flows. The first thing we always look at here is cash provided by or used in operating activities. You want this in a positive position. That's a good sign of operations. And as you can see here, it's significantly positive. It's 1.9 million. I do want to note that a lot of that is the New York Works grant. That's $1.2 million that's included in proceeds from government grant income. But even if you remove that, you're still in a $700,000 positive position. So a very strong operating position for the commission in the current year. So again, you can actually just scroll. So since Frank has already gone through all of these notes with the Audit and Finance Committee, and there were no new accounting standards adopted in the current year, I think it's probably okay if we just kind of skip through these. Obviously, if you read through these and flip through them, if you have any questions, we are available for it. But all of these notes are going to be very similar to the prior year. Anything that would jump out in these can be explained by looking at the balance sheet or income statement that we already presented. So you can go to page 27 of the PDF. I don't know what it is on here, but
It is the compliance report.
yes, yep. Yeah, so just go down one more page. Perfect. So I touched on this before. If there were any instances of control deficiencies, because we do consider the internal controls of the commission or any non-compliance with laws and regulations, those would be reported here. We're happy to report that we identified no non-compliance or control deficiencies in the current year audit. And basically what this report is another clean opinion on the internal controls of the financial reporting. Any questions on the audited financials?
So anybody from the audit committee wants to chime in? Frank Bruce, partner, Wojcicki, presented back and forth with the audit committee with some questions.
We had a very detailed report, and I don't recall any significant questions from members of the audit committee. Everything seemed good. It's a great position.
Clean audit, we like the audits, right? Yeah. We did a back-to-back audit and governance committee, so Casey got to sit in on the audit committee for an audit.
Okay, awesome. So then we can just go to the exam. That'll be quick as well. That's it. Yeah. Okay. So this is the final report that I'll be presenting. This is our examination of the commission's compliance with its own investment policies and also New York State public authority law. So we performed some limited procedures to ensure compliance with both of those criteria. And once again, we're happy to report that there were no instances of non-compliance noted. And again, another clean opinion for the exam. I know that was pretty brief.
And appreciate it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries at all.
That's why you have an audit.
Right.
So, anybody have questions for Liam? I'd like to thank Lisa and Patty for all their work and for getting everything together for this audit, and all the staff that deal with contracts, getting stuff ready for the audit. Makes life easier for Patty and Lisa. Nice that Liam gives me, some credit for this. I'll just make sure that we're on track. Thanks, Liam.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liam.
Okay. No, we don't have to do that. Tax names up there with action. So the June meeting is the June meeting has our resolutions for the end of our year as defined by the controller's office as public authority. So this is where we pass these resolutions, and then we do all the parish reporting. The 5 reports that Lisa and I put together to submit, most of which we've done. So the first one is a real property report. There was no property acquired, nor was any real property disposed of this fiscal year. We have to make that report, whether or not we do one or the other. Any questions?
We get a motion to accept action item A.
Second.
Second.
Yeah, same with Joe.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item B.
Hey, Chris, take a step back for 1 second. In terms of properties to be acquired, do you have any on the list of possibles as we look forward?
Thanks for the reminder. Remember at the last meeting, we gave, board passed resolutions to move forward with, that grant.
Yeah.
Bond Act money for that Roderick Street parcel. And I said we were either going to pursue that grant or some other means. We decided to do that. When I say we, that's working with staff of Mohawk Country Conservancy to our agreements. So we did put that grant application in.
How many acres is that property?
No, it's less than that. It's like 60. Yeah, it's almost 60.
That's great.
You can show it on the map. It's right there. See that bump that sticks out?
Gotcha. Great.
4 parcels.
I also turn letters.
You don't have to do that anymore, you just touch it right up. So that property, thanks, Chuck, Grant, that, we submitted the grant, and we were told that we might hear by the early fall. So maybe by October. It'd be nice to hear something by September. So there's that one. We do have property that we just added to the preserve, or we will be adding to the preserve. It's not here on the agenda, it just happened, so we'll get to that for the last of the action items. So it'd be nice next year to say, yes, we did.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
B, public affairs, flag documentation.
Okay, so there's 4 things as part of this: the assessment of internal controls, the annual report on the prompt payment policy, procurement report, and then the annual report financial summary. Those last 2 tie right into Paris, for the Paris, for those who don't know, it's public authority reporting information system, electronic system online to the controller's office that we have to report annually. 2 of those reports are the annual report, the procurement report. Procurement report is about between 55 and 60 pages long, so that's why the URL is just there. It's any vendor that we pay more than $5,000 or more. Let's look at the internal controls. The assessment of internal controls. This document is passed every year. This ties right back into that compliance report that you heard from Liam about. So the audit that we start in April and we go all the way through the end of May, that looks at all of our internal risk management, financial and otherwise. So this document states that we follow process that has documented the adequacy of our internal control structure. And that's based on that audit, the compliance report. The second one, here is our prompt, the report of prompt payment policy. The prompt payment policy requires state agencies to pay their bills basically within 30 days if they're accurate, and we do that. That's what this statement is. This year, and then finally, this is the annual report, the summary financial information for fiscal year that ended in March. This is the report that's in the annual report for Paris. These are the audited financial numbers. So the audited financial statement numbers that you saw that Liam went through, this is what you get the results. I just have to put a caveat and say, like, it's very, the way you input data doesn't. Correct, but it's just the way that Paris wants you. So those numbers all tie back to the audited financials. That's it for that resolution. Can I answer questions?
Can we get a motion to accept action item? Second. Brad, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Item C, revise the 2027 operating budget.
As is typical at the June meeting, we pass an updated operating budget. We put together a budget in December, required by public authority law. Now that we have actual audited financial statements, we actually know how much we spent at the end of the year. There was an additional $262,000 of funds that were not expended this past fiscal year, so we're rolling that over into this fiscal year. That is on the modified budget that you see here, $261,556. The majority of which is in contractual, which is kind of spread among most departments. There is something for science, stewardship, archaeological work, Discovery Center, education, and I can go into detail if you'd like. Communications is here. We're looking at updating our trail maps. We'll be doing that, and we're doing a refresh to our website. And then finally, other things, big numbers that jump out. Occupancy, this is for the Discovery Center. So this is balancing some of the air handlers, some of them, there's 2 air handlers. It's balancing the upstairs air handler. Exhibit repair, general facility repair, and then finally, the capital is $75,000 is for the pole barn, where we have our management facility where we store equipment, and we have equipment that's still sitting outside, so we're putting an extension on the back side of that pole barn to keep equipment out of the elements. I'll get more detail about the budget.
Any questions? We have a motion to accept. John? All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Last item, prediction market for executive order 6.
So this is based on an executive order number 60 that came out in April from the governor's office that prohibits state agencies, including public authorities, from participating in prediction markets using inside information, using non-public information. Part of that executive order requires public authorities to develop a policy, adopt a policy. That policy follows. So this was reviewed by the it kind of seems like an ethics thing, like, no, you can't do that ever. But it's good to codify it, right? So this is a policy that prohibits officers, folks here around the table, and staff from using prediction markets useful inside information. The governance committee looked at this, reviewed it, and agreed that it was accurate. Sounds good, Mr. Chair. Okay. So that's the policy on prohibition of participating in
Question? We have a motion to. Yep. So, all in favor? Aye.
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 Passed around action item E, which is not on the agenda. For consideration.
Yes, so action item E, I'll give you some background on this. Look at that. Couple of maps. So this, I'll give you the further out. So this is Blueberry Hill, part of the preserve protected area. Adjacent to that are these 2 parcels. There's this little skinny one and a larger one. One larger one's 15.7 acres, the smaller one's 0.3. This is property that was part of a homeowners association, Fort Orange Homeowners Association. These condominiums that you see here, this is Fort Orange. They have had this property for a very, very long time. The commission has wanted to acquire that property for a very, very long time. We approached them many years ago, close to when I started in the late 90s. We approached them to ask about management. If we could just manage it. There was little interest. Thanks to the town of Gilman and Supervisor Barber and your town council, I believe Fort Orange approached you and said, do you guys want this? And Peter said, do you want it? And I said, yes.
Yeah, that was 3+ years ago, because my town attorney
Yes,
and others had to visit every single one of those little
those condos.
and get, I think it was 75% of them consent under their homeowner association agreement. And the problem you have, might get a couple signatures, and then it might take another couple of years to get there. Then you have to go back because that house has not been sold or passed away. So we were constantly, we had a title company looking over our shoulder to make sure we got the magical number. So at some point we got old, I think we had 80%, and I was like, okay, done.
Yeah.
And that little piece that you talked about, which is Albany Boulevard, or
This
Albany
one.
Drive,
Yeah.
kind of, that was from the Albany County Land Bank, right? And we got wind of that, and I think I reached out to Chris and said, hey, Chris, this actually might be a nice place to have a trailhead, or at least better access. There is some room on Galena Drive, but that'd be a nice area potentially to
Yeah.
get to Blueberry Hill and all that.
Yep.
So it took some time.
It took some time. So thank you, and the town. So this was, the town is holding title. The town, and the reason this wasn't in your packet is because on Tuesday evening, the town passed a resolution to dedicate the parcels. So the town passed that resolution, that resolution number 9, certified here about the town clerk on the 17th. Supervisor Barber got that to me yesterday, and this resolution is the commission's acceptance. So the commission has to accept any proposed dedications to the preserve. Once the commission does that, your land becomes part of the preserve. 16 acres. Questions?
I make the motion, but I don't
I think you can.
I can't hear both sides of the transaction.
I would too. I'm so happy.
So I'm a vote on this one.
Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Bye.
There are lots of ticks there. Like
Yeah.
everybody, I mean, I walked the property 2 times, and I have remembered everything I built with 50 ticks on.
Wait till we restore it.
I know.
If we get rid of that black locust that's in there, then we open it up.
That, and then you've got a lot of neighbors that are doing over your shoulder.
Oh, it's nothing new. That's never happened.
I don't know what my town attorney promised me. I have no idea.
That's it. You just dedicated it so you don't have to deal with it. Okay.
So next we have a presentation from Hannah Mather on Albany Pine Bush social media update.
My name is Hannah. I'm an environmental educator here, and I also have a background in digital media. So I've been collaborating with the Education and Communications Department to kind of revamp our social media, or like strengthen it, make some strategies. Let's see if I can get my share. So social media is often scoffed at as being something that's just for vanity or for the youth, but it really has some key benefits that can benefit our community. So some of those benefits are that it acts as a mini landing page, it supports diverse content, drives website traffic, targets specific audiences, and provides instant feedback, and it expands our reach and visibility. So when it acts as a mini landing page, it's kind of like a small website for visitors to find. It tells them where the Pine Bush is, what it is, what makes it special here, links to the website, ways to get involved in an easy to find way. It supports diverse content. The Pine Bush has many years of visual assets that we can pull from, and it's an opportunity to repurpose them. And it's also an opportunity to collaborate between departments. We can share photos and videos, volunteer features, education about species, research, habitat management, recreational opportunities, as well as alerts and event updates. So social media is where we share the prescribed fire alerts as well as our email. And this is an example right here of some diverse content. It is a video I made about prescribed fire. Let's see if that works. Oh, sorry, the sound is not going to work, but the caption. Okay. So it's basically an opportunity to package our messaging into small, easy to digest content. It drives website traffic. So link clicks are a measurable way for us to get insight into how well we're doing targeting our audiences. We can direct them to the Albany Pine Bush homepage as well as to specific subsections, such as the calendar, our research, our partner links. This is an example of some of the link clicks that we've had in the last, this is the last year. So it's showing we've had about 23,000 from Facebook and almost 5,000 from Instagram. It allows us to target specific audiences. So different social media allows us to target the different audiences. Different demographics are active on different platforms. So for example, on the left-hand side right there is Facebook. Those are our Facebook demographics. We have about 25,000 followers, and you can see the age ranges here. We've got over half are over the 35, as opposed to on Instagram, where it's used the opposite, where we have under 44 is most of our audience. Oh. Sorry, I'm not great with this, but okay. See it? And then it breaks it down even further into seeing where that audience is coming from. So we can see that we are accurately targeting the capital region. If you can see that most is Albany, Guilderland, Troy, local areas. But that gives us good insight about whether we are targeting the right people, because if those were, say, another country, we would know that we were not accurately reaching the people that we want to reach. And some people check social media more often or as often as email, so the social media is a pretty good way to get our messages out there. It also provides instant feedback. It allows us to keep a pulse on community feelings towards preserve management through monitoring the comments and discourse. It's on the bottom right there. You can't really read it, but it is a comment of someone saying, you cut down 100 trees and burned 100 acres. But then we see that the public will respond back to that, defending and explaining it's not a forest, it's pitch pine, scrub oak barren. So it's nice to see that we can follow along to see how, for every one comment like that of why are you chopping things down, there will be 4 more of the community stepping in and explaining why we're doing what we're doing. It's also an opportunity for partners to share. The top right one is an example of a Star BOCES program that came for a field trip here. So it's nice to see their responses back to the programs that we are doing here. And then it's also a direct messaging resource. So it's an informal way that people can reach out for information, for questions, and we can direct them to the appropriate staff. It's also an opportunity for collaboration with different peers, such as Discover Albany, WAMC Radio. We did something with Dark Skies, International Dark Skies, and Senator Pat Fahey also. We've done collaboration. And so probably everyone wants to know the most is expand reach and visibility. So it's an opportunity for conservation messages of the Albany Pine Bush to reach new audiences. And it helps to enhance the Albany Pine Bush's role as a cultural hub and notable attraction in the capital region. So these are just examples of how many people we have reached in the last 3 months. The smaller one on the left is Instagram, and it has been, we've reached 126,746 views. And on Facebook, we have had 946.7
7,000 views. And if you keep in mind that the capital region has about 900,000 people, that's a pretty significant number that we are reaching here. And this is kind of how we stack up. We might be a smaller preserve, we might have a smaller following than some other organizations, but our engagement rate, which is the amount of people that are interacting with us versus the amount of people that follow, is on par with much larger organizations as well. And then on the right here are a couple of our posts that have been our highest performing posts. So our wrap up of 2025 had almost 900 likes, 38 comments, 24 shares. And then another one about talking about the inland pine barrens and what makes it special had on Instagram, then you had 267,000, or not thousand, sorry, wish it was, likes and 18 shares. And for everybody that views and likes, there are many more that just view it and scroll. So it's definitely reaching people. And then my pitch to follow us, if you are not already. The left one is Instagram and the right one is Facebook. Anybody have any questions?
Everybody's following, right?
But you're not.
Any questions for me?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. On the platforms I'm on. Yeah. I'm on Instagram.
good.
Facebook is too much. Too much.
Thanks.
It's good to see us doing this so proactively, Chris, and it's great. It's an important, we've talked forever about our constituency needs to be, we need to approach them more often, we need to get them more engaged, they need to come back here. This is a tremendous resource, so really glad you're doing it.
And then I also think something else that's pretty cool about it is that our message then gets out to people who have never been to the Albany Pine Bush and who may never visit, but they're still understanding that conservation and management can look different in many.
One thing that Hannah pointed out is when you get negative feedback, there are so many followers that jump on it and correct.
Yeah, it's great to see.
We don't touch it. We don't engage, we let the public feedback.
Yeah. And Hannah, do you have is there an AI angle going forward that will help you communicate more directly with more people that you're working on?
I'm personally trying to avoid AI. I think that I don't think we need it. I think we have many years of resources. We've got a whole educational program. We've got tons of resources, staff. I don't think we need the AI at this point. I think everybody here can collaborate and be better than a robot.
Well said. Good.
Thank you.
Next, we have Keith Campbell talking about carnival butterfly monitoring.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Sean. All right. Well, last year, a comprehensive study was published on butterfly population trends in the contiguous U.S. It covered almost 77,000 surveys, almost 2,500 locations. It compiled a data set of 12.6 million individuals of 554 species. And that study revealed that between 2000 and 2020, total butterfly abundance in the U.S. Has decreased by 22%. Over the 2 decades of that study, more than two-thirds of all species estimated had cumulative declines of greater than 10%. So there was many more species that were declining that were either stable or increasing. And those declines were prevalent throughout pretty much all regions of the U.S. So all this to say butterflies as a group are declining and that there's an urgent need to protect butterflies from further losses. So in this presentation, I want to focus on our efforts at the Albany Pine Bush Preserve to protect 2 of these declining species. The first is the Carner blue. This species is endangered at the federal level and in New York State. This species historically occurred in oak savanna and pine barrens ecosystems throughout the range. Currently, they're limited to remnants of these ecosystems, as well as, but they can also be found in anthropogenic habitats that are structurally similar to these vegetation communities, such as power line right-of-ways. That is, of course, as long as their host plant is present. So the carner larvae will only feed on the leaves of lupin. So lupin is a critical component for this species habitat. It's a bivoltine species. That means there's this is a fancy way of saying there's 2 generations or 2 broods of butterflies per year. They overwinter in the egg stage. And then in the spring and into the summer, the first brood of adults emerge. They give rise to the second brood of adults. The second brood of adults lay eggs that then overwinter and give rise to the first generation in the following spring. The other species I'm going to focus on is the frosted elfin. So at the federal level, there was a species status assessment that was done, but the no listing decision was reached because they determined that more information was necessary. So that's still sort of ongoing, the federal status assessment. However, in New York, it is listed as a threatened species. And the life history of the frosted elfin has a lot of similarities with the Carner blue. It also uses pine barrens and oak woodland. It also uses anthropogenic habitats as power line right-of-ways. And its larvae also feed on blue lupin. They feed on the flowers and the seed pods of lupin, where the carners feed on the leaves. The elfins are not quite as host specific as the carners because some populations will also feed on the leaves and stems of wild indigo. And unlike the Carner blue, the frosted elfin is only univoltine, which means it only has 1 generation per year. So they overwinter as pupae. In the early spring, the adults emerge. They mate. They lay eggs. Those eggs hatch. The larvae then grow. They pupate, and then they overwinter in the pupal stage and give rise to the generation the following year. So these are the 2 species I'm going to focus on. The first part of my presentation is going to be describing the work that we do for the Carner blue. That's really been the focus of ours for the last 20, probably 30 years. So then I want to share how the work that we're doing for the Carner blue is also benefiting the frosted elfin. So I just wanted to start just by briefly reviewing the threats to the Carner blue, because understanding and mitigating those threats is sort of the foundation of a lot of the work we do for this species. And within the Albany pine bush, the threats to the carner are primarily habitat-based. Much of their habitat has been destroyed and replaced with human development. So here are just a couple examples. Up top is Cross Gates, down below is Albany. Both of these things are built on what used to be former pine bush. Habitat fragmentation usually accompanies habitat loss. Habitat fragmentation can make it difficult for individuals to move among different patches of pine barren. And so for carners, even things like roads or forest strips can act as fragmenting features in the landscape. And then invasive species, especially invasive, sorry, I got ahead of myself. Degradation is also a problem, right? So degradation come in the form of fire suppression. We've had decades of fire suppression in the pine bush that has degraded habitat. Without fire to periodically burn these areas, these areas can become overgrown with shrubs or trees and give rise to thickets and forests, which are unsuitable for Carner blues. And then invasive plants also degrade habitat. They can shade out lupin and other nectar, other native understory plants. As can be seen here, up top is Asiatic bittersweet, sort of overtaking the understory. Down below is black locust. When that tree moves in, it becomes established and can change the composition and structure of the vegetation community from a barrens into a closed canopy forest, which again is unsuitable for the Carner blue. And then when you have small populations of individuals that only live for a few days, things like extreme weather events can pose a threat. And then we also expect climate change to be a threat for the species over the long term. So at the pine bush, we've been mitigating these threats using a combination of system-based and species-based management. System-based management is all about restoring the ecosystem and then reintroducing the processes that are going to maintain that ecosystem. In contrast, species-based management really just involves actions that are meant to bolster the populations of one or a few focal species. In this case here, the focal species is the Carner blue. And we're dealing with threats due to habitat loss and fragmentation by protecting land. So this is an example of our system-based management. So one of the most important things we can do for the ecosystem is to increase its size. If we're trying to get species to return and persist in the landscape, our battery's running low. on our laptop, you have your power cord.
I'll go get him.
You don't want to hear me talk without the slides, it's the best part of it. All right, we'll keep going until we get a cord or it dies. So we're dealing with the threats to habitat loss and fragmentation through by protecting land. That's one of the most important things we can do, right? If we're trying to get species to return to and persist in this landscape, then we need to make sure we're providing an ecosystem in large enough. We need to make sure that we have large enough areas of the ecosystem to maintain viable populations of plant and animal species that occur here. So to this end, we're slowly acquiring more land. When the preserve was established in 1988, it was only about 800 hectares. Now we have up to about 1,300 hectares protected. We're hoping to add an additional 1,200 hectares and get a total of 2,500 hectares is sort of our goal. And then importantly, as we are acquiring land, we're also trying to connect areas of the preserve to reduce fragmentation. And then I would also like to note that certainly a lot of the land that's in the preserve, and pretty much all the land we're adding to the preserve, is not high quality pine barrens. It's been degraded by years of fire suppression and invasive species. So a lot of the management we do at the preserve is aimed at restoring the vegetation back to these pine barren communities and then maintaining it as pine barrens. So we deal with habitat degradation through habitat management. You guys have seen this slide before. This is sort of my simplified recipe for making barrens. We start with communities that have been degraded by fire suppression and species invasion. Oh, I don't even know.
I know. Oh, good. Good guess.
Oh, okay. This is going to be better than if I do the whole thing entirely. So thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you very much. So this is our recipe for making barrens. We start with communities that have been degraded by fire suppression and invasive species. Then we use mechanical, chemical, and fire management on those communities to get us back to pine barrens ecological communities that can support Carter blues, such as successional northern sandplain grasslands and our globally rare pitchpine scrub oak barrens. And then once these areas have been restored, we also use these same methods to maintain them as pine barrens. Again, this slide is clearly an oversimplification. It's meant to summarize, not downplay the amount of work that's involved. Our stewardship staff and fire staff do a lot of work to get us from over here to over here and then keep us there, right? It's a lot of work for us to maintain the barrens. And this slide, just to give you kind of the idea of the spatial extent of our management to restore and the barrens from the degraded state. This just shows you some of the chemical and mechanical management that we've done. To give you an idea of the footprint, you can see we've already done a lot of work, but there's still much work to be done. And on this slide just shows you sort of the spatial extent and the history of our prescribed burns, which again, we use the prescribed burns both to restore and maintain the barrens. Now, when we restore these areas, we need to make sure there's abundant lupin populations for the carners. So we feed lupin into these areas as well as other nectar species and native grasses and other native herbaceous plants. So this just shows you how much we have planted. So before we started managing, there was only 4 hectares of lupin in the preserve. So I don't even know if you can see them on the small map, but there's these teeny tiny pink dots where the lupin was hanging on in the preserve. Since that time, we planted lupin and other nectar species and other native herbaceous species into more than 374 hectares of the preserve. So we've expanded the distribution abundance of lupin and other nectar species considerably. Now, once we restore these patches, the butterflies don't show up to them, or at least not right away, especially when those patches are isolated from other patches. So we've been helping the carner populations by accelerating the colonization of these restored patches, and we've been doing that through captive rearing and release. This map shows you the release sites. So between 2008 and 2021, we've released over 8,000 butterflies in 28 different patches to help jumpstart the populations in those areas. Okay, so that was just sort of a really brief summary of our recovery efforts for the Carner Blue. Given all that we're doing, we want to know, are our recovery efforts working for the Carner Blue? So to answer those questions, we've been monitoring the abundance of Carner Blue since 2007 using a method known as distance sampling. This slide just shows you where we monitored Carner Blues. So the blue patches are our survey sites, which is just a subset of all those areas we restored and planted with lupin. Each of these survey sites is covered with a series of transects. Our field techs walk along all those transects and they count the butterflies. So a single survey consists of all our field techs walking all those transects at all those sites on a single day as one survey. And then our field techs do about typically between 20 and 30 surveys each year. The idea there is they're trying to get as many surveys as possible across the first and the second brood of the kerners. And then we estimate we estimate the brood size using a two-step process. So we start with the raw counts of the data that the field techs collected along those transects. Then we use distance sampling and analytical methods to adjust those counts for imperfect detection. So that gives us an idea of how many butterflies we missed, and we can adjust our estimates accordingly. And then we take those counts that we did along the transects and we sort of extrapolate those up to the survey site, the entire area of the survey site. And that gives us takes us from the raw counts up to an abundance at each of the surveys, where each of the days that we did a survey. And then for the second step, we use a Bayesian method to come in and fit an insect emergence curve to those data. So those parameters that you see up there in the right-hand corner, those are the parameters that control the shape of that curve. So the best fitting curve gives us our best estimate of those parameters. And the one that we're particularly interested in here is brood size. So that gives us an estimate of our brood size. And brood size, again, just to be clear, is the number of individuals that have emerged over this entire brood of the kerners, right? The kerners only live for 2 to 3 days, so that they're constantly emerging, the population's constantly turning over. So the brood size estimate accounts for that and tells us how many individuals emerged over this entire period. Okay, so let's look at the results. This is for the brood sizes for all survey sites combined. The first thing I want you to notice is that the amount of area that we surveyed over time just increased, right? As we restored areas, we released butterflies into those areas, and then we incorporated those areas into our survey efforts. So you can see it increased pretty sharply early on. We're still obviously restoring more and more areas, but this 50 hectares is kind of sort of our max that we can sort of feasibly survey each year, given all the other stuff that we're also doing. As for population size, you can see that since we started counting, the number of butterflies has increased from just a few hundred individuals in both broods in 2007 to now we regularly have a second brood that fluctuates between 10 and 20,000 in most years. And I'd also like to point out that the state and federal recovery threshold, that's the dashed line that I just put up there, is 3,000 that's for state and federal recovery thresholds. And you can see that in 2013, the second brood exceeded that threshold for the first time with the second brood, and then both broods have been over that threshold ever since. So our recovery efforts appear to be working for the Karner blue, right? We've been maintaining our population above the state and federal recovery threshold. Now, given the similarity on life histories of the Karner blues and frosted elephants, we were interested in knowing if our management for the Karner blues was also benefiting the frosted elephants. We know from years of anecdotal evidence that we have frosted elephants in the preserve, right? We've consistently had a presence. We think their abundance is pretty high. However, we really don't have any data to back that up. We don't really have any data to say how well these populations are doing. So in 2025, we started monitoring the abundance of frosted elephants. So we're using the same methods. Fortunately, we can use the same methods for the frosted elephants as we can for the Karner blues. For the first year, last year, with this is sort of just our pilot year, we only did 10 of the 20 sites that we surveyed for Karners. So again, the Karner sites are the ones in blue. I don't know if you can see it, but the yellow hash marks over some of these sites are where we surveyed for the frosted elephants. We did 9 surveys over the course of the frosted elephant flight period. That ranges from pretty much mid-April to mid-May. Unfortunately, the difference in timing, because the frosted elephants come out before the Karner, so typically looks like we're going to be able to monitor all the frosted elephants and still be able to do the both broods of the Karner blues after the elephants wrap up. So it looks like we're going to be able to monitor both species. All right, so what did we find? All right, the fence building. There it is. All right. Well, that was for a whole lot of nothing, right? Last year was only the first year of monitoring, so there's not a whole lot to look at just yet. But there is a few interesting things to note. First, we were pleasantly surprised by their abundance, right? We had almost 5,000 frosted elephants in just the 29 hectares that we surveyed. And so for comparison, that number of elephants is just from 10 sites was as high or almost as high as the number of partners that we had that were in all 20 sites. If we look at the densities of frosted elephants across the 10 sites that we surveyed, you can see that not all sites are equal in their ability to support partners. We suspect these differences are mostly habitat driven. Specifically, the best sites, the ones that are highlighted in green, tend to have more woody structure in the overstory and understory. So these are our pitch pine, scrub oak, barren. The sites where that didn't quite as well, these were probably more of our open grassy sites, these successional northern sandplain grasslands. So again, this is 1 year of data. As we get more years of data, it'll be interesting to see if these patterns hold, if they do seem to like the barrens better than the more open grassy areas. And then finally, we can look to see how the elephant numbers compared to the partner numbers at sites where we surveyed both species. And we found a positive correlation between the frosted elephant brood sizes and the brood sizes of the first brood of partners and the second brood of partners, with the first brood of partners being slightly stronger. So again, this is based on 1 year data, but it looks like what's good for the partners is also good for the frosted elephants. Where the partner populations were high, the frosted elephant populations were also high. So given the positive response of partners and elephants to our management, it's very likely that some of the other nearly 80 butterfly species that we have here in the preserve are probably also benefiting from our system-based management. Right, the preserve, for example, is loaded with New Jersey teak, which is the host plant of the mottled dusky wing. Given how much New Jersey teak we have in the preserve, we're likely probably have the largest population of mottled dusky wing in the Northeast. Edward Terrace Street feeds on scrub oak, although we are thinning scrub oak in some places. It's increasing in other areas, so that increasing distribution we're increasing the distribution of scrub oak, and we're probably also increasing the distribution of Edward Terrace Street along with that. Similarly, in restored areas, huckleberries and blueberries are becoming established. Those are the host plants, those are the larval food source for Henry's elephant. So we're probably benefiting this species as well. And again, as we remove forests and create barrens, we are undoubtedly creating more habitat for the monarch. So that's just a few examples of, like I said, of nearly 80 butterfly species that we have here in the preserve that are probably benefiting from our system-based management. As for our next steps, we're going to continue to monitor the Carter blue to see how our population is doing relative to the state recovery threshold. Right, we want to make sure we remain above that threshold of 3,000. We can start to relate now that we're getting a pretty good time series going. We can start to maybe look to see what's controlling these fluctuations that we see in the Carter blues. We can tie to management and weather, maybe to get a better understanding of why those populations are changing. We're also going to continue to monitor the frosted elephant. Like I said, last year was just our pilot year. We only did it at 10 of the 20 sites that we're surveying partners. Moving forward, we're going to do the surveys on all the 20 sites. Starting this year, we've done frosted elephant surveys on all the same sites that we're doing for partners. And last year was just the start of what's going to be an annual monitoring effort for the frosted elephants. So we're going to continue to build out a time series for the frosted elephants, much like we have for the Carter blue. And then again, as we get more use of those data, we'll be able to see if we have that correlation between partners and the frosted elephants is going to sort of get upheld if they're sort of both simultaneously benefiting from our management. As for other butterfly species in the preserve, we can't possibly monitor all of them in the same way we're monitoring partners and frosted elephants. It's just way too much work, and some species aren't really amenable to that kind of the method that we use. So to get at some of these other species, our field ecologist and entomologist Alex Soldo is going to be surveying the presence of all the different butterfly species she can find within the preserve. So that for that, she'll be doing a pollard walk method, which means she just goes out and walks around the preserve, and then she records all the butterflies she sees within a certain area or volume sort of around her path as she walks through the preserve. Okay, so just to wrap up, our management appears to be benefiting the Carter blues and the frosted elephant in the preserve, as well as probably many other species of butterflies. And it's important to note that these local successes that we're witnessing are happening at a time when butterfly species populations in many other places are declining. And all this is happening within a fragmented preserve in a very urban area. And as Neil likes to say, if we can do this work here, we can probably do this work anywhere. So we're hopeful that our work can serve as an example for other sites throughout the region, throughout the country, for protecting and managing our butterfly species, as well as the ecological communities that support them. So, sorry we had a little rough technical issues, but I'll take any questions.
Questions for Steve? Questions about elephants?
Yeah.
And obviously, interested, as soon as you started presenting about it, I thought, well, like, you know, obviously the conversions of varying sort of habitats in the preserve that you manage. You know, the response to the population, depending on the type of habitat. I was wondering, you know, you obviously have these two species you're talking about, but you also talk about some of these bird species, other species of greatest conservation need. When you look at the preserve as a whole, it looks like they're all doing great. But clearly, they have different, you know, different niches in that, so different ones are probably providing for different species. Have you done that sort of thing, looking at all those species to try to figure out like which habitats maybe support the most number of those different conservation, you know, highest conservation needs? So as you move forward, planning for, you know, new restoration sites, you know, not every site is obviously suitable for every type of parent habitat restoration necessarily, but you have to sort of, to some extent, some choices to make as to the trajectory of the habitat you restore. Using that to sort of make those decisions, you obviously kind of a statutory responsibility for partners, but, you know, obviously I think as a preserve, clearly you care about all the other different species as well.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're starting to look out my expertise and more in Alex's expertise in terms of what individual species like. But I will say that we, I don't know if you remember that map we showed about the, right, we're putting a lot of spatial heterogeneity into the landscape. So I don't know if you remember seeing that, like here, for example, this is we've done all this other management, and then, so we have all this going on, and then the fires. So we are putting a lot of different sort of successional stages in the landscape. So within sort of the pine barren ecological communities, we have a lot of those things sort of present simultaneously at the same time. Now, if they're not necessarily don't like any of those barren communities, then you know that's another conversation, sort of another conversation about if we want to incorporate some of those species into the landscape. Like our emphasis here is on the fish pine scrub oak barrens as a globally rare community. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, Ellis knows more. The Habitat Association is certainly better than I do. I'm mostly the numbers guy in this situation.
Casey, are you asking about other species beyond butterflies?
Yeah. Oh, beyond butterflies. Butterflies.
No,
beyond butterflies. So yeah, so certainly great. I'm presenting primarily on the butterflies today, but you know, we're interested in a lot more than just the Carter blue and all these other things. But this is the whole idea of the system-based management. We're putting the system back in place. We're going to bring a lot of other species along with that. So we're getting rid of the forest, right? If you want to see a forest, you should be going to someplace else. You shouldn't be coming here to the forest. This is a pine barren. So we're restoring it to pine barren.
So Casey, we have our monitoring program is designed for butterflies, birds, reptiles, and amphibians, all focusing on that SGCN species list. So we have a various protocols across a variety of taxonomic groups to look at that question. But we haven't done, to Steve's point, we haven't done that holistic analysis yet. But what we see is across all those groups, everybody's doing really well. Whippoorwills are back, orchard orioles, smooth green snake, hognose snakes, the butterflies, the bees, the native bark beetle community, all of that. No matter how we look at what the wildlife is doing, it's indicating that the structural heterogeneity that we're creating on the landscape is advancing the conservation of 114 rare species.
But certainly, including what thrushes I think are species of great conservation.
Yeah, they don't.
Right. We're any forest species that are species of great conservation here. Those are not our priorities, and so any of the ones that are associated with more early successional barren species do seem to be coming along. And again, we have our like prairie warblers and eastern whippoorwills. We have some of our target species that we're using to sort of represent sort of an umbrella for like everything else. But we do have a lot of work on the bee species and some of the other groups. They have, but certainly we're drilled in a lot deeper on some of the partners. So like you said, we have statutory. Yeah. So we're monitoring some of these more intensely than others. But well, so a lot of it is we have data on a bunch of some of these things, but a lot of it also is just sort of anecdotal, like we see everything shift.
I miss Harvey being here because at this point he would usually have some good critical, skeptical comment.
You can bring it on.
A good technical comment. So I immediately looked over to Harvey and he's not here.
Distracted. He's in Italy.
How many butterfly types did you say we have here?
I think Alex has put a list together that's about 80 what we have that we know of.
Just a quick question. Do you track like weather conditions? Because it seems like everybody said this was a harsher winter, but maybe an earlier spring. I just wondering.
I mean, we have a weather station out there that we have some of those data that we can download. And so so anecdotally we have like last winter, or this winter was maybe harsher, but we had pretty good snow cover this winter. It lasted much longer. And so for the Carters, we think that might be better because they're protected under the layer of snow, where last year, the winter was cold and we had almost no snow. So we think mortality certainly over the winter months is probably affected by how much snowfall we have and how cold the temperatures get. And then even during the spring, like last spring, last spring, I think the winter wasn't great. And then we had a really wet, I don't remember how wet it was last spring. But if you're a butterfly that only flies for 2 or 3 days, and if it's cold and rainy, you're not up flying finding a mate. So things like that. That's why I said extreme weather events can really whack the population down. And so undoubtedly those things are having an effect. But these are within an ecological circle that are selected species. You may have lots of young, they can reproduce very quickly. So conditions get very good again, the population bounces right back up again, which is why you see on that graph that I showed you, right? You see that this is like conditions get good, conditions go bad, they go up and down. And so last year the population was a little bit low, but I'm not raising any alarm bells yet because this year the population can spring right back up again. It's just sort of the nature of these species. They're sensitive to environmental conditions, and so they tend to fluctuate with environmental conditions.
Board members first always.
That's what I just wanted.
Oh, no. Well, because I had similar thoughts. You can't control the weather, but you can sort of design your habitat restoration to build in.
That's we're trying to sort of put a floor on. We're trying to put a floor on that, right? The ceiling will go as high as weather conditions allow, but we're trying to make sure that we don't plummet.
So from your data, you were showing, if I recall, that like the grasslands weren't as preferable for the farmers than sort of more down there shaded areas. Have you ever able to look at the weather and like maybe in really snowy times, it's like remember different weather conditions might support like better in the grasslands under certain conditions, like if they needed to dry out, so they're going to dry out faster in the grasslands than it is under shade, that sort of thing. I didn't know.
Yeah, and I certainly have this. I didn't present that in here, but I do have the Carter abundance that's broken down by sites. Better to look at. The problem is some of these sites being in the barrens, it's interesting and it's curating too. These sites fluctuate so fast. That'll be a grassland in 1 year and a barrens in the following year, and so you're kind of keeping track of all that heterogeneity and that's constantly changing over time. Sort of gets tricky to sort of track that stuff, but yeah, certainly.
Well, it kind of to some extent comes to my original point about like choosing which version, so to speak, you target for the restoration. Given that they shift so much and that's part of the goal, I mean, there isn't worth the effort of trying to pick the type of habitat rather than keep maintaining it and allowing it to sort of cycle through different stages of habitat type.
Yeah, I think the idea is we put in a lot of
build that in automatically without having to try to.
Yes, I think that's what we're doing. So we're heterogeneity in the landscape and the butterflies are sort of changing. We don't want to get into what we've been accused of as the carnification of the. We don't want to say, oh, we're just going to drill in and try to give the best target that we can for the carnivores, because like we were talking about earlier, there's a whole bunch of other species that might not necessarily be totally in line with the carnivores. And so having that diversity, I think, again, Neil sort of said, there's this dance going on with the heterogeneity we're doing and the burns that we're doing, right? We burn the areas, carnivores don't really can't survive the burns, but they survive nearby and they recolonize those areas as soon as they sort of bounce back. But the plants grow back, and so they're probably constantly doing this, sort of sorting themselves out about what space on their habitat.
You prefaced by this with the national decline, but we're showing increases. So are the national declines about habitat more than other factors? If we can increase them here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the paper didn't look at reasons for it. They were just looking at the trends, but I think they chalked up the habitat as a big one. I think they pesticide use was, I think, was the second big one for those. So we're not spraying a lot of neonicotinoids within the preserve, so we have that covered. But I'm coming to the idea like it's the habitat stupid. It's kind of where I'm coming at, because I feel like sometimes we sit on these kind of recovery team calls, and it seems like people are like focusing in on which species are providing the most nectar for carnivore blues, and I think it's just like create habitat for them. Like they seem to be responding here at least very well to the habitat. We release butterflies into these areas, and I think like we set this up for them, and then I think that the fact that we're creating habitat, I think, is why our populations are probably doing well here. And not to disperse these other organizations, because we do have money that we can manage a lot, right? We can open up habitat, we can maintain it, especially through the burn. So we have the capability of doing that. Other organizations might not have the budget to maintain and create habitat like we are, but the fact that we're able to do that, I think, is why we're seeing the success that we're seeing.
So thank you to the board
Yeah.
for the support, so we can do what we need to do.
Sorry for keeping that. So numbers are going up, but so has the area that is protected and restored. Have you sort of looked at different numbers to see, like, if the area restored was to sort of maintained, just maintain that, are your numbers still going up because they're able to go up because the habitat's that good? Or are they kind of flatlining because the area of restored habitat remains? I'm not sure what.
I think he's getting at the variability that you see, Steve. Like habitat is basically the same over time, but the population fluctuates. So there does seem to be a maximum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I mean, like thinking about the study, if like butterfly population is going down, but presumably habitat's also going down.
Right.
So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And your numbers are going up, but also habitat's going up. So that makes sense too. So talking about like, is it weather or something else? If habitat stay the same, what would be happening?
Well, I should put the caveat in here that, if I go back to that map, right? So we're only surveying in the blue area, so my abundance estimates only apply to those blue areas. So we're creating more areas than we can survey. So the population undoubtedly is probably just going up preserve wide. We've heard a lot of hand waving for me to take our estimates at our sites and try to project that to preserve wide. So they are going up at any individual site. Those things are going up and down one year, depending on how we manage. But one site becomes really good, population's up that year, and then next year it could be another site that's really good. So the habitat is always changing. So I don't know when you say like
Casey, that graph he showed,
stable.
the habitat, the area where the numbers only relate to the area we survey, and the surveyed area hasn't changed for the last several years. So the ups and downs of the numbers are only at those sites, regardless of what else is happening in the rest of the reserve.
Because you're talking about how you use that to predict overall.
No, we're not predicting the preserve wide numbers. These are just within all of our survey sites combine all those blue areas. So the fluctuations you're seeing are probably the fluctuations in habitat quality as it goes from management to regeneration and then weather. So probably a lot of this is probably driven by a combination of weather and management issues.
And those numbers only relate to about 10% of the occupied lupin in the preserve. So it shows around 10,000 a year. The real number is something higher than that.
Neil will just have me just take our number and just multiply by.
Just extrapolate it, at least double it.
I'm like, well, not all periods in the preserve are equally suitable for the carnivores, and so.
Yeah, I get in trouble.
But based just on the areas that we're surveying, we are meeting our goals in terms of multi-coverage threshold. That's just based on our survey sites. Undoubtedly, if we look at preserve wide, we're probably way over the coverage.
That leads into my question, the recovery threshold. If you continue to have the success year after year after year, at some point, the state basically saying it's no longer endangered.
Well, yeah, they can say that about our population, but the problem is at the federal level, they have to be, all 13 recovery units have to be recovered.
You could be successful here and have problems in Long Island.
Right. And even within the state, we have like 3 or 4, even within the state, there's 3 or 4 other populations that have to be doing well for us to delist in the state. So we're doing our part, so everybody else can sort of needs to get their populations up and then we can consider delisting. But based on the criteria, they can say that our population is recovered.
They did.
Where you were going?
Yes, I was.
Other questions for Steve?
All right, thank you for the questions.
Right.
One thing I did want to do is I wanted to recognize Tom White. Tom, thanks for being here, for Supervisor Crummy, filling in for Andrew. I didn't recognize you in the beginning.
Any other business for the board today? Do we have a motion to adjourn? So, Brad, all in favor? Aye. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody.